This is the Johnny Cleveland Podcast, all things Cleveland sports, with your host, John Suchan. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Johnny Cleveland Podcast. Yes, I'm your host, John Suchan, here on a Tuesday evening, trying to find my music to play in the background because that's what I like to do. Let's see here. Ooh, we got a little bit here. Oh, it's a little loud. String music. Turn that baby down. So, it's a Tuesday night, and had our Stirring the Pot show last night with Lou Marconi. Had a great show, great time, good visit with Lou. We have a great group of podcasters here on the Fanatical Elves Network, part of Fans First Sports Network. And we got Steve Gill with the Dog Pound South show. We've got the East Bank show there with Noah Olson, Jarrell Flint with his Dog Food Radio. Sam just had his show, if you watched it live here on our Fanatical Elves Twitter page or YouTube, his Browns Breakdowns. We got Rob. Got that mixed up. Rod Bloom with his, Browns Blitz. Yeah, Browns Blitz. That'll be coming out here in a couple days. Hey, I'm in the smaller picture here if you're watching us on the X or on YouTube or on Facebook. Yeah, I like to do that because I wanted to point out that guy. I don't know, that guy right back there. Nick Chubb. Yeah, Nick Chubb. He came back. We're very happy, us Browns fans, to have Nick Chubb back in the house. He had 10 or 11 carries for about 20, 25 yards. They had him on a pitch count. He did well. He scored a touchdown, folks. We were all thrilled to see that. I think some of us, we wanted to see a few more runs by Nick. He, looked good. He had one play where he looked a little bit like he did in the past, went for about 4 or 5 yards. The other carries, he struggled a little bit, and the offensive line is not perfect, as we all have been talking about endlessly this season. But I think Nick Chubb is going to be back. I think we're going to see some really good things the rest of the season, and just the idea and the fact that this guy is out there performing, doing these amazing things now, the fact that he's on the football field and has played a game, considering everything that we saw last year when he went down with that terrible injury, is truly, truly remarkable. And that letter that he came out with before he started this last Sunday to the fans in the Cleveland about his return and a little bit about his background was all really, 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 really cool. Many folks talked about how it made them cry. Grown men crying over what they read from Nick Chubb, which is, it was cool. It was cool. I don't know if I shed a tear, but it certainly was, something that was put together now by a team of writers and Nick Chubb himself, and the reflection on his past, reflection on his being raised by his grandmother and the hard work that he put in. Really, really was cool. I'm trying to do a couple things here with our social media. That's why I keep turning away from the camera. We'll get back here momentarily. So again, just, we love Nick Chubb. We know that, they talked about him being the heart and soul of the Browns, and that is so, so very true. There was such interest in this game prior to Sunday because we knew Nick Chubb was coming back. Batman was returning, and we know what he means to this organization, the heart and soul of the team. At the same time, we were struggling with a team that was 1-5 coming into the game with the Browns organization and Stefanski refusing to acknowledge that his quarterback, Deshaun Watson, was really, 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 really bad. The rest of the world saw it. Browns fans tried to deny it. Some Browns fans still tried to deny it, complaining that it was the offensive line that's the problem and all these other issues. And it's really not Deshaun Watson. You know, Deshaun Watson went into the game. Some will say that, oh, well, he played pretty well in that game for the most part until he suffered a horrific injury, which we're going to talk about momentarily. And that's, you know, you can look at the stat line and you can, but if you were watching the game and you maybe listened to the game or, you know, listen to the commentating, there are a lot of commentators suggesting and pointing out that these many opportunities that Deshaun was passing on, like he has all season long. He's not seeing the opportunities that are in front of him. He's checking down time and time and time and time and time again, not seeing open receivers all over the field. I wonder why Amari Cooper was so frustrated and why he eventually got traded. Now, there's a lot that goes into the Amari Cooper situation, but I can bet you $1 bazillion right now that probably Amari Cooper knew what he was getting with Deshaun Watson out there. What you were getting out there was a quarterback who everyone was praying to God would show some form of what he did back in the day, and he didn't have it. And you know, on a level of just being a human being, Deshaun Watson just wasn't. I mean, I'm sure he was frustrated as a football player, as a person, that he wasn't able to recapture that magic. You know, that's what it was. You know, I've heard a variety of takes since then from local people, national media, like all of you have, about what exactly Deshaun Watson was. And when the Browns decided to bring him in and guarantee him the $230 million, and there were other teams obviously in that grouping trying to get him too, but of these teams, many teams looked away, not only because of the 20-some thousand off the field allegations, but also because of what they saw on the field. And had he lost a step? Is he seeing ghosts? Is he not who he should be or who we wanted him to be? So these were all really things that all of us were very frustrated about as a fan base. You're 1-5. You have a coach that was refusing to give up play calling, still refuses to give up play calling, who wouldn't admit that Deshaun would constantly say that he gave this team the best opportunity to win games. Then the other part of the fan base has been saying, well, go ahead and put in Jameis Winston, put in DTR, see what happens. You'll see. It's more than just Deshaun Watson. Sure, I know. I'm not an idiot. Browns fans are not idiots. As a whole, yeah, there's a few here and there, and we're going to get into that here in a moment. But we're not dummies. So Browns fans that are in that grouping that like to say, well, you know, you just shouldn't be Browns fans because you're not really a true Browns fan. You're not dedicated. You know, you're negative. Well, folks, here's the deal. How many of you Browns fans are in our age group right now? How many of you Browns fans have seen this story play out and play out and play out? Now, this story right now, this current one with Deshaun Watson and the Browns organization, the Haslams and the Stefanskis and the Berries, is its own unique story. It really is. You all know that. And part of that story is that we have been force-fed since the day we traded for this guy to try to continue to be Browns fans and continue our loyalty to the very end. It's a mess, folks. It's a complete and utter mess. Now, the mess as a Browns fan is not anything unusual to us because we've experienced so many messes. I mean, this goes back to before, 99. We had messes back then before 99, before this team was stolen from us in 1995. There have been messes with this organization since the beginning. Now, we love Paul Brown, we love Jim Brown, we love these guys, and that they are the heart of this organization. And then maybe and eventually one day the Browns will get to the Super Bowl and win one. For God's sakes, we need to. Now, it's great that we can refer back to, our 8 championships that we won between the 1940s and 1950s, but it's not helping us anytime soon. I'm going to get into more of what happened on the field of play, specifically Sunday. I know Lou and I talked about this a little bit, and like our title here, Johnny Cleveland Podcast, a fan base divided, Browns players scolding fans. It's a mess. We're going to talk about that after this quick break here on the Johnny Cleveland Podcast, part of the Fanatical Elves Network and Fans First Sports. We'll be right back. Hey, and we are back here on the Johnny Cleveland Podcast. Thank you for tuning in, watching us right now, tuning into Apple, Spotify later, listening to this downloaded podcast. It's free, folks. Go download us. That's how we make the big bucks. Many of our colleagues like Lou Marconi and Steve Gill and who else? Noah Olson. They all write also for Fans First. So please listen to them. Read their stuff too on Fans First. We really, really appreciate you. Our product here has grown. This is our second year in our season, and we couldn't ask for a better loyal fan base. Our X page, X is getting Twitter has gotten a lot of negative reporting again this week because of it is what it is, right? It's a negative forum, and people get to say what they want, and there aren't any repercussions for that. And so it's kind of a free-for-all. Speaking of opinions and free-for-alls, I guess the part that I want to talk about with this whole Deshaun Watson and the injury and everything, I happen to be in Wichita, Kansas, over the weekend, and I used to be the Browns backers president of the Oz chapter there in Wichita, and had an opportunity to go back and hang with those guys on Sunday, watching the game from their sports bar there, and had a great visit. Josh, shout out to Josh and Bob, Tom, all those guys, Pete, just love hanging with those guys. John, also there's another John there that I hang out with, so just really cool. But what I want to get to is, like, so many of you were at the game, maybe you watched the game on TV, maybe you were at the stadium. And we all know at the end of the first half, Deshaun Watson went down with a horrific torn Achilles. On the replay, it showed it snapping, and it was horrendous. Now, on the TV broadcast, and I rewatched it like many of you did, I did not hear, booing or cheering. Those that were at the stadium, and I've heard from several, at least 4 or 5 accounts of people that were in the stadium, and I have season tickets myself, wasn't at that game, but of the people that were there, all of them said that there was nothing unusual about what they heard or saw at the time, that there were, the complimentary sort of cheers as he got carted off, and like in applause of, I hope you get better. Now, there are reports of people that were doing other things and cheering for that. Now, I'll say this, folks, come on now, there's been a lot that's come out since then, and what's been driving this is that the players, many players and many people on social media, started coming out immediately and saying, oh, there's all these people that were cheering the injury, and they hate Watson, and so this started this sort of battle amongst the inner battles of the Browns fan base. While I'm sure there was some of this stuff going on. In the bar in Wichita watching this event take place. I mean, folks, listen. I mean, you got to be honest with yourselves, and if you're not, I mean, I know we want to sugarcoat this, but you're a team that's 1-5. You have a quarterback that is lost his way, and you have a coach that has no idea what he's saying and is being probably reading a script as like giving, saying all these things about why Watson gave them the best opportunity to win. So when all these things happen, we've been force-fed this guy for the last 2.5 years. The feeling that was expressed in that bar in Wichita, 1,000 miles away from Cleveland, and I'm sure many sports bars across the globe, when that happened, there was, I wouldn't say joy, but I would say there were a lot of people, and I can confirm this, that were like, oh, look, he's down. Uh-oh, we got to put in, he's down. Like, that's it. Like, we saw it snap, and like, that's big time. Like, oh boy, now we're going to see another quarterback. We have been, as Browns fans, for the last month, begging this organization, begging the coaching staff to say, hey, look, Deshaun Watson doesn't give us the best opportunity to win. Put somebody else in and give him an opportunity. You're 1-5. But no, they're stubborn as an ass. I'm going to keep going down this road. But guess what? An Achilles snaps. Oh boy, there was a lot of reaction of, oh boy, not of euphoria, but be real. If you're a fan, you need to be real. If you were sitting in that stadium, or if you were watching it on TV, and you're trying to tell me, and you're trying to tell the other half of the Browns fan base that you were like, oh my God, I feel so bad for Deshaun Watson, I want to cry. Please. Now, what added to this story, obviously, was immediately after the game, when players like Jameis Winston, Myles Garrett, Greg Newsome, who did diddly squat again and blew us a touchdown, all these guys come out after the game and go with the narrative of, hey, can't do that. Or they started by saying, hey, there was a lot of, this or that negativity they felt from their perspective on the field. And then they took it the next step, which is what people are talking about, when Myles Garrett and Jameis Winston start saying things like, we need to show more empathy and understanding. And Myles Garrett goes on to say, hey, this guy's a stand-up citizen. He's done all these things. He's been a great guy all through middle school, high school, college, the pros. And the other half of Browns fans' bases are scratching their head going, what? Okay, 20-some civil cases that have been settled out of court, kept him out of an entire football season in the past, and somehow he's a stand-up citizen that we need to throw all of our support behind. And I'll pause again. Yes, it was a horrific injury. Horrific. He might never play football again based on what happened. And then you have Jameis Winston, who gets to be the preacher on top of the hill, talking about all these ways that we should be showing empathy and all this drive and all this stuff that Watson and all this work that he's put in. Then you get Greg Newsome, who says it's bullshit. It's bullshit. Okay, great. Greg, next time you play in a football game, why don't you go defend the guy and try to knock the ball, play some good defense and not show us bullshit on the field of play. So you can defend. Players are, this is a mess, folks, and that's why we're talking about it. part of this, even coming into this game, there were a lot of people talking, a lot of fans, a lot of people here locally across the nation saying, especially Browns fans themselves, saying, this team isn't just fun. Where's the joy? Who are we going to root for? This team isn't like the Cleveland Guardians. We can get behind the Guardians, or we can get behind our Cleveland Cavaliers. But the Browns, it's just blah. It's blah. It's negative. So Nick Chubb coming back. Browns fans kind of got a little excited coming into this game because Nick Chubb was coming in. And, according to Lou, he said it was the loudest that the Browns fan that he's heard. The euphoria, him coming and playing. It was, great. Myles Garrett. Talk about him for a quick second. I have a lot of respect for Myles Garrett. A lot of respect. I think, and I've said on this show and other shows many times that I have felt like he has matured quite a bit. Matured because he had his own needing of class and civility when back in the day when he decided to try to swing his helmet, and Lord knows what he was thinking at the time. Regardless of what is said and done in the field of play, he decided to take a helmet and swing it around, and he was punished for that dearly by the NFL, missed several games. And while I respect Myles Garrett, and I still do, the conversations that he had and Winston and Newsom and other players that have come out since, you start getting into this little muddy area. And you can say that you can defend your guy. He's your guy. It's a sport. I get that. He's one of your players, your teammate. But then when you start adding things on top of it and you start saying, hey, fans, you know better. Shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on us. Shame on us, the Browns fans, who spend thousands and thousands of dollars every season, season ticket holders, fans that come just on a game or two a season. They're spending lots and lots of money. It's an entertainment business. It's the NFL. Now, there are limits to what fans can do and not do, and the fans can be scolded for that or punished, even legally, if they do certain things when they go to games or competitions. But these players coming out, it's dividing an already divided fan base, because there's a lot of Browns fans that say, oh, the players are just backing them up. And I just said that myself. But then you start getting into this whole sort of scolding of the fans where you say, well, you need to show more empathy. You need to stop booing. You need to not cheer like that, or perceived cheering. Players, look, it's an emotional time. Your buddy, your pal, your quarterback's on the field of play. He's injured. He's having a moment. There's a lot of emotion in it. And I know so that for itself, for another reason, is why, the player, and you didn't see Stefanski after the game say much of anything or chastise the fan base, did you? I'll go back in time and I'll watch it, but do you see any of that? I don't see any of that. I didn't hear him say, shame on you fans. But Garrett and Winston and Newsom and stuff like that came out and decided to do that. Now, Garrett's been here the longest. But again, you're getting into that little muddy area when you're talking about what you're doing with the fan base. Now, since then, and this is just, as a fan base divided, it's a podcasting network like the Fanatical Elves Network here, divided too, because we have several colleagues in our group who disagree with what I'm trying to get and trying to message here and suggest. Some are in the group, and some that you talk to might say, well, now, we're going to distance ourselves from players, and players aren't going to want to come here, or free agents, or during the draft, they'll refuse to come here. Folks, this has been happening for all of time in the NFL. And there's a lot of money in the NFL. You would be really stupid as a player coming into the NFL to refuse to want to play for the Browns because you think that the fan base is going to boo you or cheer you when you get injured. Just you're going to ignore, like you have principles, right? That's what you're trying to tell us, future stars in the NFL and potential star here for the Cleveland Browns. That's what you're getting at. You have morals. You feel like, that's what you want to do. I think that that's not the case. I mean, this is a moment in time. Browns history has had many moments in time with many high profile players. Johnny Manziel, Josh Gordon, Andre Rison. Let's keep rolling. Who, again, have been in sticky situations. Has it stopped Browns players or free agents from coming here? Yes, there have been things over the course of time, over decades, that yes, there have been situations that have come up. But again, this is not anything beyond any of those things. And the Browns have a stadium that they're going to a dome stadium they're going to be building by 2029. They have an ownership in the Haslams who have bazillions of dollars and are willing to spend to bring in good players. And we'll see where it goes. There's a lot of speculation right now. What's going to happen? Who's going to, who's on the hot seat? Who's not on the hot seat? Is Stefanski safe? Is Barry safe? Are the Haslams, what are they going to do? I mean, obviously the Haslams are going to build this stadium. They're not going anywhere, but is Barry safe first or Stefanski safe? Who's more safe? There's a lot, right? There's a lot. I hope that, I said on this show many times and on some of our other fanatical programming, if you're a longtime Browns fan, you knew that something was going to happen on this past Sunday. You're going into that game 1-5. You have a coach that's refusing to admit he's wrong, and you have a quarterback that was in disarray. And you knew, and I said this, that the Browns fans were going to be relentless. It was going to be war. It was going to be awful. And that's exactly what you got. Now, you're going in this week against the Ratbirds. You're already an 11-point underdog at home. Usually the home team gets 3.5 points. So that means you're already 2 touchdown underdog at your home stadium. Well, you're 0-3, folks. You suck. The Browns are stinkers. So yeah, they're an 11-point underdog. You're going to play the Ratbirds, who just dismantled Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay, knocking out 2 of their wide receivers in the process. If you thought Sunday was bad, it could even get uglier on this upcoming week. Now, I don't think that's the case in the sense that, do we win? Probably not. Do we play better with Jameis Winston back there making better decisions at quarterback? Absolutely. Winston knows how to play the game of football and is not going to see ghosts like Watson was seeing. I know Watson is injured and he's down for the count, but that doesn't mean we can't talk about the fact that Winston will give this team a better opportunity to at least get over the 20-point obstacle. Folks, it's pathetic. 7 games into the season, this team has not gotten over 20 points. 19 points. Terrible. Worst start in this organization's history. I mean, outside of those, obviously, the other years that we went 1-16 and 0-17. But this is really, really bad. The Stefanski last, folks, if they keep losing, and let's say they get blown out of the water against the Ratbirds and you're going 1-8, 1-7 at that point, then you got the Chargers, who look pretty bad. If you lose to the Chargers the following week before you go into that bye, See you later, alligator. Stefanski, steady Eddie. I think you're gone. You can't justify keeping this guy as the coach if you're 1-8 going into that bye and you lose to the lowly Chargers, a team that has to come across the country, and you lose that game. Now, we lost to them the last time the Chargers came here for a home game back 2 years ago. Keep that in mind. So Stefanski's got to get something. He's got to win one of the next 2 games to save his life. I really do. Save his job. The season's done. We know that. We've been talking about it for the last 3 weeks. But we want to see improvement in certain, areas. We want to see improvement by the coach. There's this whole conversation right now about who's saying what. I know I've got colleagues here in the Fanatical Elves that are saying that it's his decisions and all this stuff, but I don't buy it completely. I just can't. And most fans and most critics and analysts don't buy it either. I mean, how can Stefanski be so bonehead up till now to not have recognized that Watson was not the guy? And even when Watson was asked, or Stefanski was asked about Watson coming back later on in the future, and he was probably just trying to be kind, which is a good coaching tactic. He basically said, let's not talk about that. We don't want to talk about that. We don't know. So we can talk about that situation another day. But now Stefanski's got to create an offense, obviously with Dorsey's help, around Jameis Winston. DTR played relatively well, but injured his finger, and so he won't be able to play for the next couple of weeks. The Browns brought in Bailey Zappi, who actually beat them a couple seasons ago, also at Cleveland Brown Stadium. So some people are complaining, oh, Bailey Zappi sucks. I'm sorry, Bailey Zappi beat your team. Okay, so let's just pause for a moment and just be thankful that we got another quarterback that we're probably going to need, who will probably be another quarterback to add to the long list of other quarterbacks we've had in this organization that have come back since we've come back since 1999. Oh, boy, isn't it, this whole stuff with the Browns is exhausting, right? You want to think that we could see, there's got to be something to look at this season by the end of it and hold our hats on for hope going into next year, because it's just dreadful. And what we saw this last weekend was just dread added on top of dread. And now you have this fans who are bickering at one another because they felt like some of the fans were cheering too much when Deshaun Watson got carted off. I mean, come on, folks. You got 60,000 drunk fans, or half of them are drunk in that stadium. And they all pay good money to go see that product. If you had some knucklehead, or if you had some fans in Wichita at a sports bar acting like they were happy to see another quarterback go in there, so be it. You guys who want to then scold, you fans out there who are trying to scold the other part of the fan base, to say, how dare you? You're terrible. You have a terrible mindset. You're an awful human being. How can you think that? I mean, for God's sakes, man, relax. I hear people tell me to chill and relax. We're all chill and relax, okay? I think that's where we all know this, that we all need to concentrate on doing the best that we can every day and try to improve as our own, as a human being. We're all working towards trying to be better. I would hope most people have that mindset, and somewhere in the back of their mind that that's something that they want. So let's concentrate on that amongst ourselves. This whole, the commenting about, how dare people do this is just like, it just floors me. It doesn't floor me because like I said at the beginning of this show, that, the X and the Twitter and stuff is just a dreadful place. And I'm going to personally try to stay off of it more and more as we move forward. I like doing these podcasts and working with the Fanatical Elves Network and Fans First. I truly enjoy that. And going back and forth and commenting with our fans. By the way, if you have a comment on the show, we are live. Please send those my way and I'll get those posted here momentarily. Only if they're respectful, right? No, they're not derogatory. While I'm doing that and looking at that, I do want to give a shout out to the guards, the Indians, the tribe. Gosh, I was out there in Wichita, game 3. Lord, was that not a fantastic moment, right? It was such a great moment when the Indians down, they give up those precious home runs back to back. Clase was just toast after that. I mean, he was a mental basket case the rest of the series. He had those 2 home runs in game 3, and Lord saved us with the back-to-back, well, our own home runs with Mr. Christmas, and then Mr. McDonald's French fries, David Fry, with the splendid 2-run homer. Just a fantastic moment. I was in Wichita watching the game. Got my Diet Coke here with friends and family, and a great moment. But that begs the question, when we talk about these great moments, in sports history, usually the great moments coincide with, a win, which it was in that moment. But the Indians did not win the series. They got beat the next 2 games. They were up, and again they blew it with their pitching. Clase again was a shell of himself. I thought that the decision by the manager not to play his pitchers, his starting pitchers, longer into the games, and how he worked Clase and stuff was just bad. And I think it was because he's a good coach, but he has a lot to learn. And those were some mistakes that really hurt this team. I think the Guardians had an opportunity. Well, they had several opportunities to get at least another win against the Yankees, but just came up short. The Yankees, $350 million payroll. Indians, $100 million payroll. I think you see when you can pay your Bronx Bombers to hit home runs, they came through. They're very arrogant, pompous bunch of guys there in New York. So be it. I don't like them. We hate them. The Yankees are Yankees, and they'll always be the Yankees. This year just seems to be, with Stanton and the other guy that hit the mammoth home run, the straightaway center at the end, and then Aaron Judge. I like Aaron Judge a little bit, but you get the other 2 guys, Juan Soto and Stanton on the other side. Those guys are just so pompous asses. So that was hard to digest, to watch them prance around the ballpark and the bases as they did. But, it is what it is. Hope the Dodgers smack them around. Indians, hopefully we'll get it back next year, and we'll have a lot more to be proud of. They did so many great things this year. And to be honest, I hadn't really followed this team much coming into this season. They had several of the same players that they did last season, but the fact that they're making a name for themselves. Jose Ramirez just did not come through. He was one of our stars. Josh Naylor did not come through to jack squat. It was good to see other players like Lane Thomas and Fry come through, and Stevie Kwan. So good for them. Let's see. Oh, Mike is Mike, you're watching us. Thank you. I think we made let's see, Mike, what did you say here? You said, I actually went to church on Sunday morning to prayer. I thought it was guaranteed win day. Very disappointed. Jerry Judy, in my opinion, not working. Trade him immediately. Okay. Yeah, the whole his whole attitude, throwing the helmet in frustration. Some people say, oh, he's just frustrated. Okay, but that's where you're not going to see an Amari Cooper throw his helmet. When was the last time you saw an Amari Cooper throw a helmet, right? Yeah, Jerry Judy had problems in Denver, and that was a lot of folks in Denver said good riddance. So that did not surprise me when I saw him throw his helmet away. But it is very disappointing. I agree with you there, Mike. And what else did you have to say something here? He was smiling, I think. Oh, okay. He says, I think it made me very upset. It was in his press conference. He was smiling. I think, what the hell are you? Oh, what the hell are you smoking? Okay, gotcha. Why are you smiling? Yep. I've already talked about Stefanski a little bit, Mike. Again, I think you've got a coach who, I don't know, he's in a position where he's in his 5th year. If he doesn't win a couple more games here, I definitely think he's on the hot seat. And for people to say, oh, I was hopeful maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, like, okay, get another win or two. Maybe he's safe. They see what happens in the next year. But if this team can't win another game, I mean, you got to get rid of him. You got to get rid of him. You got to get rid of Barry. You got to just, I know people don't want to hear that. They go, oh, we don't want to start all over again. And I don't want to start all over again either. And I want to get some stability, but you can't have one season when you're 11-5, the next 2 seasons where you're disgruntled players like Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry, or, you can't control them. And then you get another good season because Joe Flacco came in and saved the season for you. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm baffled with Stefanski. All the things that you read about Stefanski and everything that you've saw previously, and people change. I think he has a young family that's growing up. You think he's been here his 5th year. His kids, I think, are becoming teenagers, and there's a lot of moving parts. And when you have it's sometimes it can kind of get in the way. I mean, if you want to be, people have got to be honest. People are human. That was the other thing I was going to mention today, was that McLeod, our defensive back, I'm not saying his name right. He's on the fan program many times during the week. He came out and kind of, again, put down the fan base, but he had this whole narrative on the show when he was with Ken Carman and such on the radio this morning about it. And his defense was basically like, players are human, we're supposed to, they read all this stuff like you read, and if they see stuff on social media. Now, by the way, Deshaun Watson has pleaded with us, or tried to tell us, that he's not doing any of that. He stays away from social media. He doesn't know what we're talking about and all this crap. But then you get Rodney McLeod, who comes out and he says, players read this is true, all these things, that they're humans. And I'm like, yeah, duh. But it's again just one of those things where I get the players defending their quarterback, but the guy's not coming in with a record that's saintly. And when you get players like I mentioned earlier, Myles Garrett, who threw helmets and was trying to kill Mason Rudolph, a few years ago, I just have a hard time taking that in as a fan. And that's what Browns fans are talking about today. It's, fine. Okay. You can say, to those fans who were booing, or you could just say, I wish as a sport, as an athlete, maybe you could just say, man, I wish those fans wouldn't boo or cheer, when he went down. It's funny because even Myles Garrett a few weeks ago, and many fans don't, if you go back and watch it, there was after the press conference, or during the press conference, Myles Garrett, when the fans started booing, this is booing. Look, that's the other thing about, Browns. We're not the only freaking fan base in the world that boos. Go to Philadelphia, go to New York. My God, fans boo. That's what we do. That's what, you can, it's entertainment. If we see a bad product, and Myles Garrett admitted that a few weeks ago when he came out afterwards and somebody asked him, well, the fans are booing. And Myles Garrett says, oh, the fans have the right to do that. Yeah, I'd be booing too, is what he said. Okay. So when you're out there in the press conference the other day, Deshaun Watson goes down. Yeah, sure. And it's just, you could say, boy, I wish I didn't, it was too bad that we heard those cheers and some of those boos when he was being carted off. Leave it at that. Leave it at that. That's all you have to say. You're defending your guy. You're saying it's too bad that we had to hear that. You don't have to take it the next step and say, shame on you, fans. You got to be better than that. And that's what the other fans are doing to other fans. And this, again, is why we're here and why it's a mess. We got to get it better. We got to get it turned around. Does it happen? That's what Stefanski would say right now. We got to get it better. Got to make it better. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I'll leave you at that. We have the Guardians that came out, lost in 5 games, like I just mentioned. By the way, we have the Cavaliers starting. They have their home opener tomorrow night. I believe they play, was it the Pistons or the Magic? It's an away game. And then I think they have a home game against the Detroit Pistons. But that should be fun to see what happens. Max Strus, injured. He will be out, 4 weeks, 5 weeks? Presumably, I'm going to guess that Dean Wade, my buddy Dean from K-State, will get the start this season. Know Dean a little bit personally, and I'm super excited. The guy is you talk about a pro's pro. Dean Wade is a great guy. And if you don't love Dean Wade as a Cavalier fan and you want to chastise him, I feel bad for you. I'm excited to see what the new Kenny Atkinson can do as the coach. I think he's got this team in a different mindset that I think can really give this team an opportunity to do much bigger things than we have in the past when we had JB Bickerstaff here, who was not a very good coach, in my opinion. All right. That's all I got tonight here on the Johnny Cleveland podcast. Please, thank you. Download us on Apple, Spotify. Watch or read our guys who write articles like myself, John Suchan, Lou Marconi, Steve Gill, Noah Olson, Rod Bloom. All these guys write a little bit on the side. Check out their writing on Fans First Sports Network as well. Until next time, folks, remember to keep smiling. Take care.